Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we will have an exciting and highly practical training session just for you. This is a real-time requirements gathering training where we have used a real-time application to gather requirements just like it's done in the real world. Our candidates also took turns to ask questions that are typically asked during requirements gathering. This interactive approach ensures that we get comprehensive understanding of the process. It is real time. The content has turned out exceptionally well, and we believe you'll find it incredibly useful. So make sure to watch till the end, and if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you have any questions or need further clarification, feel free to comment below. We love hearing from you and we are here to help. Let's dive into the training and start mastering the art of requirements gathering. Today we'll start with how to elicit requirements. So we'll talk about how to elicit requirements. So let me share my screen. Okay, so like I said, today we are going to talk about how to elicit requirements. So what we are going to do is we are going to reverse engineer. So generally we gather requirements, they will code, and then the feature gets displayed to you, right? In this case, we are going to look at the feature like loan details, client details, historical account balance. We are going to look at the feature, and then we will all try to ask the right questions that we are going to ask in real time. Okay? Who's not able to understand whatever I just said or the exercise that we are going to do today? Let me know, because I'm going to pick people and you guys are going to attempt, because that's how you guys learn and it's real time. So let me know if you are not able to understand what we are trying to do now, even the newcomers. So Vishwa, we will start with you. So this is
Okay.
more of a real time thing, right? So I'm going to pick a feature.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, let's start with the client details. Now think of it this way. You don't know anything. All you know is that one liner. You need to capture requirements for client details. You don't know anything else. Now, based on what you see on the screen, what questions will you ask the business? Go for it.
Yeah. There may be several details, data available about the clients, and what are the columns that they exactly need to dashboard display.
Okay, good point. First one, what are all the columns that we need? Okay, I'll note that down. That's the right uh, question. What are all the columns that we need? Question mark. Okay, now this is pretty straightforward. They are supposed to give you the column. What else? Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is there any particular order that data should display?
Okay. Third. Okay. What other question?
About the design, about the color?
Oh yeah, that's design. We don't have to start
Yeah.
asking questions about the design. There's
Okay.
one more very important question. Think about it, because that's how you think as a BA. This is what you do.
So I have to only look into the client details, right? That
Only client details, this table. So one more question is, how often do you want this table to get updated with the real-time info?
okay.
Okay, because 1 hour later, this might change. A record might be added, right?
Yeah.
So how often do we have to update the table? There is another obvious question.
Where the data is going to get feeded
Okay,
from
where
where?
is the data coming from? Do we even have the data?
Yeah.
Where is the data going to come from? Is it going to come from an API, from an external application? Then we need to use an API, or do we have the data? Then we don't need to use an API. And one more question that we can ask is, where can we place this table in the UI? Right hand corner, right hand top, left hand corner, left hand bottom. Where exactly in the UI? One more question is, so that is another question, right? Where can we place the feature in the UI? This is the only design question that I will ask. I'll not ask too many design based questions. I'll try my best not to ask a lot of design based questions. Of course, some business teams, they want to give the design. You can't do anything about it. You just need to capture it and then coordinate with the development team. But as a general practice, I don't try to get the design itself from the business team. And this is the only question that I will ask, right? And then I'll go to the development team and figure out the design. Now, another question that comes to my mind is, can we filter this based on location, based on the loan type, or any parameter? It could be based on the location, it could be based on the gender, it could be based on the age, it could be based on the profession, it could be based on the county. Now we have the location. Since we have the county, we can filter this based on state. If we have the county, right, we can filter it based on the state, based on the country, based on the province, based on the county, right? Or we can filter it based on the gender. That might not be in complaints, but if at all they ask you to do so, we can filter it based on the profession, right? So should we be able to filter the table based on any parameter? What
Yeah,
other
another
questions?
couple of questions coming to my mind is where that filter button should be placed, whether it should be inside the table or
No,
outside.
that is design, that's okay.
Okay, okay. Another question is who can actually access this? Who else can
Yeah,
access?
need to know who can access it, who can just view it, who can make modifications. That is need to know. Who should be able to see it? That is need to know. Okay, that question also came up in my mind. What other questions? One more obvious question. We discussed about functional requirements, non-functional requirements. So if I filter it based on a specific loan type, which I'm doing here, right? How soon should it get updated? 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds? Non-functional requirements, right?
Yeah, in that case, who can access will also come under non-functional requirement, right? Because
Yeah.
it is also a security reason, right?
Need to know is also non-functional.
Okay.
Accessibility is also non-functional. This is performance-based. That is performance-based question, right? One more is there, obvious. I think we've spoken about it briefly. Accessibility. So in every organization, there will be an Excel document which consists of accessibility standards. Okay. Now, should this be accessible? Should this be should this fulfill any accessibility standard or set of accessibility standards? What is accessibility standard? The font should be at least 10, at least 11. It should be in a certain color. The JAWS reader must be able to read through everything for people with visual disabilities. All these things are accessibility requirements. Everybody should be able to interact with this feature. If somebody has a disability, they should also be able to interact with this feature. That's where accessibility requirements come into the picture. Okay, so these are all 9 questions you can ask just by looking into this, just by having that one liner. We need to collect the client details. Any questions?
Now I'm confused. Yeah, the accessibility standards also come under design, right?
Accessibility standards come under design. The accessibility standards themselves come under the design. But like I said, there is going to be an Excel document, which in most number of cases that will be standard. For every feature, they will not give accessibility requirements.
Okay.
So there will be an Excel document. It will have 30 or 40 accessibility requirements, standard. Whatever you build in that organization that needs to follow that Excel document, they will give it a name, WAG 2.0. So simply we will add, it has to follow accessibility WAG 2.0. Then the developers will look into that and make sure it's following accessibility. This is how it works, unless they specify something. If they specify something, you can capture it. The fonts must be 11. It should be read by the JAWS reader. You can capture it individually also. But in most number of cases, they'll give you an Excel document and say, just follow this. Why is that? Because there might be an internal or external policy. In state websites, especially websites of state government, everybody should be able to see it. You cannot discriminate people based on their disabilities. So they should also be able to interact with it reasonably. So it should be it should sync with the JAWS reader. It should be compatible with everything. Actually, a lot of these screen reading tools, and people sometimes they don't know how to use the mouse, right? So they should be able to tab everything and go everywhere just by tabbing. I think people with visual disabilities, again, or people with hearing aids, they should have their own set of support. So generally it's going to be an Excel document. but they are not going to say, okay, you change it to light yellow or dark yellow. That is not going to come from the business team.
Hi, Shushrut. I didn't understand the number 8. It's the same as how often it's update the table, right? Or is it something different? You said.
Number 8 is performance based, which is if I'm now that is Nijingi loan or something. If I change
Okay.
it to this one, you see it's taking some time to change and filter.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That
Got
is,
it. Okay. Thank you.
so let's try one more feature. Okay, let's try this feature. And yeah, somebody can start saying things and calling out the questions that you will ask. Again, always remember, you will not be having this right in front of you like we are having it here. You will not be having it right here in real time. All you will know is we need a mechanism to have a image of the, not image, but the map of that area of that county, and all the counties should be displayed. And I think what data is this? The number of clients must be displayed in all these areas. Okay. So what are all the questions that you will ask?
Which chart should we using to display the data?
Yeah, again, you can ask this to the business also, but this is more of a design question. But you can ask whether it's a bar chart or a pie chart. You can ask anyone actually. But I will, yeah, you can ask this question to business, but it's a design question.
Okay.
Any other, anything else that comes to the mind?
Can we choose any particular specific county to enter and see the data?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question, right? Yeah, and then since it's going to be, you know that this is going to be coded in Power BI, you will get this question. This is a good question. What other question will you ask? Another obvious question: how interactive should the map be? Now, when I clicked on this, now they want a map. That much we know, but how interactive is it going to be? So if I click on it, should it zoom in? That is also a requirement actually. Should we shade the regions in a certain color if the number of clients will exceed a certain number? I think that's why some of them are gray, some of them I don't know. Is this orange or some kind of light orange? That is
Yes.
another question that comes to my mind. And I think this is Nairobi. Yeah, this is dark orange because there's 406,000 clients in there. Now, outside requirements, there should be one other question that should come to the team's mind. That should also come to your mind because you will be delivering it. What is that question? We've covered this very briefly. API. Do we have Google API? Because every time you see a map, that is Google API. Anytime, wherever you see a map in an application, that is Google API. That is Google Map API. Okay. So next questions that should at least come to your mind is, okay, who should I contact to get the Google Map API? What are all the data points that I need to ask? These two questions must come to your mind. So again, how a Google Map API will look? Google Map API sample URL or real URL, if that's okay, and give some JSON data points. This is what I'm talking about. Who are you going to ask this to? Now, data points, it's going to give the data points. Give me JSON data points that a BA72. Give it in JSON format. Literally, this is what they'll give you. This is the JSON URL. This is how it comes. Of course, you will not be asking about the data on the right. You will be asking about the data on the left. All the data points. So all those data points, what is it? Nairobi, Busia, Mosamba, all these things, Sia, that question must come to your mind. Of course, you'll not be asking the business all these things, but again, you will be coordinating, right? And again, same questions. Is the data real time? How often are we going to update the data? Or is it going to be every day at 1 p.m.? That's it. Or is it going to be real time? That question comes to the mind, right? Performance. Can I filter this based on the county? This whole thing. So this is how you think as a business analyst. They'll only
I
tell.
just have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go for it.
In case if it is map, it is mandatory to go for Google Map API alone.
No, not like that. Generally, when you see a Google a map in any application, Uber, Lyft, Ola, Grubhub, you see in the left bottom corner, it says Google. That means it's Google Map. So they are paying Google to use their feature. So from my view, it's mostly Google. So I was thinking it's Google, or maybe there is another API that you guys might want to go and might use to get the data and this feature. Then you, but again, the process is the same. You will get a hyperlink like this. You should go to the concerned entity, get the hyperlink, ask them for the data points. I mean, I need all these data points, and then they will give it. Then you will give it to the development team to code. Process is the same. But do we have other maps apart from Google? I was thinking there's only Google Map, but maybe there's one or two more, I don't know. But Google Map is the best solution so far.
So the data points will be decided by the BAs or
Data
business.
points obviously will be decided by the business. So now whether we are going to use Google Map API or bar chart or pie chart, that is determined by the development team, design in coordination with the business team. But the data points themselves is decided by the business team. Whether this is real-time data or can be past data, that is decided by the business. But how are we going to give them the real-time data? Through an API or through triggering a batch every time the page is refreshed? That is determined by the development or the architects. So this is how you think as a BA. All they will say is we need to capture the number of clients feature. Only one line you know. We need to visualize the number of clients. That's it. That's all you know when you go to the interview, when you go to the requirements meeting. Of course, you might have done some analysis we covered. You might have done some analysis, but with that, you should be able to ask all these questions without anything in here. Now, there are some purely backend projects. Let's take this, right? Let's come up with another backend project, okay? This is purely backend. So I'm going to explain a scenario. This is going to be out and out backend. And I want you guys to come up with some questions to the business team and start thinking that way. It's not about, oh, you asked the right question or not. It's about, are you able to think like a BA? Okay, that's very important. So the very next scenario is going to be out and out backend. So I'm going to give a scenario where electricity board project. Every time there is a report is sent currently in a manual manner, in currently manually via email, and sometimes it is sent in an automated, okay, yeah, email. Okay, now this email is sent by the electricity board to the electric ministry to stay in compliance, because any time there is a power outage, people will contact the electric ministry for updates, and the staff need to have updated info. This is how the process currently works. We need to automate it. The electric board must send these emails which has power outage information, when the power will be back on, why was there a power outage in the first place, what are we doing to fix it. These info must be sent from the electricity board to what is that other name? Electricity ministry through their applications. So the board will send the data over to the ministry through the application, and the ministry will be able to see the data in their UI. Okay, this is the project. This is like a business purpose of the project. So I'm just gonna, do you have any questions? I'm just going to ask, do you have any questions? I'm just going to do this to the Okay, it's giving all the answers, but before we go there, do you guys understand the project? What it is that we are doing on a high level?
Automatic email to the clients, right?
Yeah, long story short, there is an electricity board, there is an electricity ministry. Every time there is a power outage, angry people will call the ministry, right? Or that local, I think at least in Europe or at least in places like India, what we do, we call our counselor or somebody in that area, right? And we say, hey, what's going on, when we will get the electricity back? Sometimes people go there physically, which is not recommended, but then we call them. But then they are obligated to give us an answer, the ministry, because they are elected, and they have to give these answers, because the next election they might not vote or something like that. So they need to be prompt in answering questions if there is a power outage, because people are not happy. So the electricity board must give them the answer. So currently what's happening, somebody will email it to the ministry. Somebody in the board will email it to the ministry. Hey, there's power outage because of so and so reason. This is when it's going to be fixed. This is what we are going to do. This is when we will complete it. We will notify you. Next notification will come in 2 hours. There is an email that's being sent in their server through Outlook or something. We want to automate it. So this data must be sent from one application to another application. Okay, from electricity board to the ministry. So they are using, let's say they've started using new applications starting maybe 2 years ago. So now this needs to be automated. If you click something in their front end, in the electricity board's front end, and hit enter, that information should go to the ministry's applications front end. That is the scenario that I'm taking. Now you are going into this project. This is all you know. What are the questions that are coming to your mind? Now you have to elicit requirements using this. So what are all the questions that's coming to your mind? So this is the out and out. Of course, there is some front end elements, but there are some back end elements also. So what questions will you start asking the business team? First question, obvious question.
What all information should include in the email?
Okay.
Like,
That's a good question. What are all the information that should be included in the mail? A better question will be, can you give me some sample emails?
okay.
For us to analyze? Or this question is also right. You can go through it. Other questions that come to you.
So who will feed the data about the reasons?
Okay, that's a good question.
What does that mean? Like, who feed the data?
Yeah, what is the user role? That kind of thing. Okay. Next obvious question. Now let's say you are working for the ministry. You are contracting with the electric ministry. So the electricity board database, do we have it, or is that an external database? In that case, you need to use an API and get that data. Now, if it is an external database, then there might be service level agreement and all those things needs to be signed, right? So do we have the data or we do not have the data? Obvious question, how soon do we need the data to come in?
So what data we are talking about now?
Now, let's say, for example, all this information that the electricity board will send to the ministry. And then the case where there's a power outage. So I'll give you that sample email, right? Give me a sample that will be sent out. Okay, this is a sample email. There's information about the affected areas, estimated restoration time, cause of outage, current action, additional notes. Okay. This is how that email looks. That's coming from the electricity board to the ministry. So first thing, you'll go through this email, 5 or 6 emails, to figure out, okay, what are all the recurring data, right? And then you will start proposing, and then you will ask questions. What are all the recurring data that we want? So now the need is, the data must flow from application A to application B. Now, what other questions are coming up? Okay, what are all the data that we need? First question, what are all the data that we need? What are all the data points? So again, the data points are given here, which is what the business will give you. Okay. Then we can determine what is the data type and all. We can determine it later. Okay. What is the other question that comes up? Now you know the data points. So give me, okay. Now so now you know the data points. Now, since you know the data points, there is another question that just came up in my head. A very good question. I lost it. Since we have the data points, Is there any required fields? Okay. Now I'll explain what that is. Now let's say as a part of the project, we are going to send the data 1 to 5 via API. Give me the data points in JSON format and a sample API. Now, this is how the API link will look. First, you'll look for the API link. You'll ask around, right? As a part of your requirements gathering process over a period of a week or two, you will start figuring out who should I look out for the API link. The business will guide you. There will be other people who are going to guide you and connect you to the right person. You'll get the link. When you talk to that person who's giving you the API, what will they ask? Data points. So you should give all these data points that the business is asking you. Okay. And you'll say, I need all these data. Now, another question that you have to ask the business is there any required field? Example, if there is, the estimated restoration time data is not filled in the application. Now we are going to, what are we going to do? This information is going to be sent from one application to another application. Okay. So in the case where the estimated restoration time is not filled, then that is not a valid row. It's not a valid entry. So what should we do? Do we need to give them an error message when this data is not coming in through the database? Or should we ask them to create an error message in their application front end? If they don't enter this data, then they should not be able to hit submit. Error message will come, fill the restoration time. That question you will ask, right? Is there any required fields that we should definitely get when a record comes in? Without current action, don't send us anything. So how are we going to stop them? That's the next question. Are we going to stop them in the front end here itself? Or when this data is sent via API, our application will send them another email saying that you've sent us a record. Estimated restoration time is not there. Can you send us that or resend the record? Or that record itself is a failure because this is not sent. So they have to resend it. That question comes up. What other questions comes up? This is a purely out and out backend project, or this is a project where there are a lot of backend elements. That's why I'm taking this. And you will be working on projects that are out and out backend, and you should be able to gather requirements. So that's why we are taking this example. This is a slightly advanced topic, but the vision is to make you think like a BA. The details don't matter, but you have to think like a BA. What other questions come to your mind?
Just a doubt, like we need end user details like email. We have to send email to them, right? So
Yeah,
where
again,
do we get that?
we are getting away from the email process
Oh,
and
okay.
from application to application. So we are getting away from it. Okay. This is a slightly advanced topic. I only know all these things because I have worked on it. There is another one called error codes. Error codes is nothing but when there's two APIs, several things can happen. There is an API, application A is there, application B is there. The data is coming through the API. Now, application B server might be down. Application A server might be down. The API might break. There might be a problem in the API client ID and secret or the password. Maybe something is wrong in the API. Some data is missing. Okay. All these things, if it happens, or any one of these things if it happens, we need to give an error code or a notification message. That is called error code. Okay. I'll give me a set of error codes that might come up for this API and explain each of them. This is called error codes. 200 is success. The data went through. 400 is there is a server problem. Is it? There is a client problem, or the server is not able to process the request due to client error or malformed request syntax. This might be maybe it's missing a required field. We were talking about it, right? Now this is authentication is required and the client failed to provide valid authentication means what? We don't know. So there's application A and application B. There is an API in between. Application A must give the right authentication, meaning username and password or something to the effect of it, to use that API. If that is outdated, that is not correct, or that is outdated, this error will come. 401. 404. This is again, I don't know what is 403 and 404 is. For 503 is the server is not available. This is what I was explaining, right? The server is down. The server is down. 500 something happened. We don't even know what it is. This is a general error message. We don't even know what it is unless we look at the code. We don't know. Okay. So this is called error message. So we can add one more error message or error code or and say error 404, 407. One data point is missing. Hence, we cannot process this. Give us that data point. Okay. And we can call it 407 if we want. Cause of outage is not there. So can we give 407? Or should we stop them in the UI itself when they are trying to save? This is another question that comes to my mind. So if it is a purely backend project, out and out backend project, this is how you should think as a business analyst. This is the thinking pattern that you must have. When we cover systems, we will get a better idea. But this is how we elicit in real time. Literally, this is how it's done. And again, you will be able to ask all these questions once you work for a year or two. That's when you'll come to this speed. So it takes time, but then I'm just giving you a snippet of what happens. So any questions before we adjourn?
Yeah, those error points and those things that will be added in the BRD or something. We are gonna raise it to business.
Yeah, this will be added in the BRD also. The business must approve it actually. This can be added in the business requirements also, yeah. And this will also be in the system requirements document. Now let's say I will just ask it, right? Give me requirements for this. Yeah, it's not giving, but you can document it in the business requirement document also. We'll cover it when we cover BRD. And we can put the same info in the system requirement document also, but the way it's documented will differ, but we can do it. But forget about documentation in this session, right? We'll cover documentation later. But this session is about, are you able to ask the right questions and think the right way to get the requirements? How we document, that's secondary. That is the simplest thing in this role. The hardest thing is to ask the right question and elicit. We'll focus on that.
So what if we miss to ask a right question and we are not able to do it initially? So what could happen? What would be the best way to do it?
I think at some point somebody will bring that question up. Like I said, you will miss some questions for sure when you start out. And even after you gain experience also, sometimes you will lose some, you might miss some questions. But in the long run, you'll pick up the skill set. But missing questions will happen all the time. But the vision is for you to run in the right direction. That's it. Don't think about, oh, I might miss that one question. What can I do? No, that's okay. But at least, but run in the right direction. Start thinking in that way. So when I give this, you should at least start asking 50% of the questions that we discussed today. When you look at this write up, this is the kind of write up that will come to you, and you should start thinking the right. And of course, you are yet to go through the business analysis training. You are yet to go through the systems training. You will get some more info.